Welcome to another episode of Ignite Agility. Today I have with me Autumn Way of People Possibility. Before we hear from Autumn, don't forget to like and subscribe. And our topic today is all about job descriptions. But first, Autumn, tell us a little bit about you and People Possibility.
Well, thank you, Angela. I'm excited to be here. People Possibility is a consulting organization, and we focus on helping businesses improve performance and grow through strategic engagement solutions. Basically, the way that we think about it is if you can create an environment where your employees want to come to work every day and they're committed to the work, that the organization's going to thrive, the individual will thrive. And so we create customized solutions to figure out how do we achieve that, where the business grows and the individual thrives.
Awesome. And most of our audience works in a way that we call Agile or Scrum. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that drives everybody crazy is either the lack of a job description, or worse, if the employer says, hey, we're going to change the way you do your job now, but we're not going to actually change your job description. We're going to hold you accountable to both. So one of the things it would be great for you to share from your professional point of view with our listeners is 3 issues or pitfalls you're seeing out there that employers make where job descriptions are concerned.
Yeah, so this surprised me when I first started getting out into businesses, how frequently there are no job descriptions. So somebody will get hired and they applied to the job description through the job posting, and then that becomes their job description. There's not another conversation afterwards to provide clarity. You just kind of listed the second one. So somebody gets hired, they have a job description, but then they start doing completely different things.
Bait and switch.
And so now it's almost like they're in a different job. And then thirdly, you'll have that you're being measured against things that are outside of the job description. And so what happens is you'll be hired for a specific job. And then when it comes to being kind of your performance review or you're having one-on-ones, you're being measured towards the job description, but in the day-to-day activities, you're not really doing the things that are in that job description. And so the alignment of what you're doing and what you're being measured against is misaligned.
And one of the things that immediately comes to my mind, and trust me, I am not a lawyer and I don't play one on TV, but risk. Mm-hmm. You know, I always say to some of our agilists and people who use Scrum for their job, if we could just get employment attorneys wise to what's happening out there, oh my gosh, a lot of this stuff would be fixed in a heartbeat. But I just think that there's an enormous amount of risk, not only for the employer, but also for the employee. So can you talk to us a little bit about risks either way that you're coaching some of your clients on?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple things that I think about when it comes to job descriptions, misalignment, not having a job description. And the first thing I think about is the risk to the employee engagement. And I know you brought up the risk to the employer. In my mind, the biggest risk is the employee engagement. And Gallup says that the very first question in Gallup's Q12 survey is, I know what's expected of me at work. And as I'm meeting with clients, whenever there's an employee that is uncertain if they're meeting expectations of the role, it decreases satisfaction tremendously. It increases anxiety because truly, for the most part, employees want to meet expectations. They want to know that they're meeting the needs of the business, that they're making their bosses proud, that they're doing what's expected of them. And so when there's not alignment there and the employee is uncertain, that creates a lot of disengagement. The second piece that you talked about is the risk to the employer. And if you have to start going down in a performance management situation in which an employee is not meeting expectations and they have been doing activities that have been asked of them by their boss that are outside of their job description, and then you start holding accountability to the job description, there's a huge risk there, right? Because the employee didn't know that I was being measured to this. I thought I was doing what was expected of me, and now I'm being held accountable. And from a a employment lawyer perspective, I would imagine that would be a case fairly easy for them to take on and be willing to take
win.
to court. Yeah, and win. To be quite honest, and win. Yes. Yeah.
So, okay, for our listeners going, well, this is all great, Angela and Autumn, but I'm not the boss. I would love this all to be in alignment. So from an employee point of view, what kind of tips can you offer our listeners that they could use? You know, even though they know it's outside their control, is there anything they can do to help guide the employer? Even though, you know, that might be asking a lot, but it may help them be happier in their job too.
Yeah. Definitely. So the first thing that I would say is I would start writing down all the things that you're doing on a daily basis. So just have an inventory yourself so that you're really clear. Here's how I'm spending my time. Here's kind of the objectives that I achieve on a consistent basis. And then if you have a job description, I would compare the two and say, are these in alignment? Are they not? And if they're not in alignment, then I would schedule a meeting with your boss, and I would kind of prepare yourself, like I said, to say, here's what I'm doing, here's what the job description says. I would be prepared to go into that meeting and have a conversation that says, I want to bridge this gap. Yeah. I want to figure out how I'm really clear on the work that I'm doing and how it's making an impact for the business. And so can we have a conversation about my job description and what I'm being held accountable to? I can't imagine that your boss would not appreciate that conversation.
Right.
Because it just demonstrates your commitment to the organization. It demonstrates your commitment to wanting to be successful and wanting to help the business be as successful as possible. And so preparing and going into that meeting and saying, hey, if these are misaligned, I'd like to create my own job description so that you and I know what I'm working on and that you and I are in alignment on what success means on a day-to-day basis.
And one of the things I coach some of our students on in terms of language is, to not set that boss up to be defensive.
Yeah.
Don't go in there guns blazing saying, this isn't what I signed up for. This isn't Agile. This isn't Scrum. I'm like, oh, for the love of God, don't say that. So the language I share is, I'm confused. Mm-hmm. I want to meet goals and objectives. I am super confused. And to your point, what boss wouldn't hear, hey, I'm confused. I'm trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't the boss want to help? Do you have any other kind of language tips either to not use or any phrases that you love hearing or that is the go-to phrase that will make that conversation a little smoother?
Yeah, I would tee up the conversation with your boss that just says, hey, I have been realizing that some of the things I'm doing day to day were not necessarily what was on my job description when I was hired. And I'd love to talk about that because I want to make sure that I'm meeting your expectations. I want to make sure that what you need from me so that the business is achieving its goals, that I'm clear on that. And so it would be very much a conversation about like, my desire is to help this organization be successful, and I want to make sure that I'm meeting your expectations. So I think that, meeting your expectations, the emphasizing that I want to make sure that the business is succeeding, that you are proud of me. I think sometimes like there's this sense that using words like proud and pleased with, it's natural for us to want to please our bosses.
Nobody says I want to go into work and do a horrible job today.
No, right? And so be authentic in the sense of like, it's important to me to know that I'm meeting your expectations. It's important to me to know that I am achieving the outcomes that the organization needs from me. And so just being really authentic and gentle, as you kind of phrased it with, I just want to make sure that you and I are on the same page and aligned. And no blaming, no accusing anything. I mean, It happens all the time, especially in smaller businesses where people are wearing a lot of different hats. And and honestly, a lot of the top performers will pick up slack and pick up activities and things that aren't being done by others. And so sometimes that's how you end up doing things that are not necessarily on your job description. And so just really being understanding that things evolve as time goes and that you want to be really helpful to your boss and to the organization.
For sure. So some words to pull out for our listeners that I'm hearing is expectations, goals, and objectives. Avoid blame, right? Avoid the blame game. Yeah. Are there any other tips as we start nearing the end of our conversation? Any other tips that we haven't covered or that I haven't asked you about?
As it relates to job descriptions, I think that in a perfect world, you and your boss meet and have a conversation about here's what I'm really good at within the role. And if you and your boss are in alignment on what are the expectations that you have on a daily basis, like your satisfaction goes up. And so if early on as you're starting in the role that you're in, if you can kind of create that relationship that is more of a partnership with your boss that says, I just really want to make sure that I'm helping you be successful and I'm helping the business be successful. So initiating those conversations, whether it's in your one-on-ones or a performance review, whatever the situation may be, if you can get alignment and know that you and your boss are really clear on what you're working on, especially in remote environments.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Where they don't get to see you, but really clear on what are the activities and what are the outcomes. Most importantly, the outcomes, because at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? To the organization. Yes. And so just making sure that you're really in alignment and thinking about it as a partnership that, you want to be here and do really good work and your boss needs you to be there and do really good work. And so how do you come together to make that happen?
Awesome. Well, Autumn, share with our listeners how they can learn more about you and People Possibility.
Thank you. So I'm super excited because I just launched our new website, peoplepossibility.com. And so it has all of our services that we offer. And you can also find me on LinkedIn and on Instagram. So People Possibility has LinkedIn and Instagram, as well as my own personal accounts.
Well, thanks so much for the conversation.
Thanks, Angela.